Hi and welcome to part 2 of this GIMP tutorial series, and in this part we will talk about picking colors. We will also have a look at the simple select tools. These first 3 in the toolbox. We will use the paint bucket, which is a very simple tool, and then we will mainly be talking about layers. So, last time we stopped with this empty picture. We have the transparent background and nothing else. So let's start by filling the background with a color. So the first thing we would like to do is finding the right color. So unless you just want to use black, you will have to click on this square or box and you will get the change foreground color dialog. You can move this window around and you can actually make it bigger so you will be able to see more. This is the standard selection. You can use different modes. That is the CMYK view. This is actually a different color space and you only need it for print. This is a different view, but basically you have all the different views here. Just take the one you prefer, but in most cases it's just easiest to take the standard GIMP view. At least that's the one I'm using all the time. You can just left click, hold left click and just drag up and down to find the tone. Let's go for something blue. And within this square you can again just left click and drag to find the color you would like. The current color is visible right here. And you can see the way it changes. So let's just take let's go to green and take a very dark green background. Like almost black but not entirely. Like this one looks nice. It's a really dark green tone. As soon as you click OK, it will pick that color. So if you would take the paintbrush now, you would paint in that color. But what we will do now is we will pick the bucket fill tool. Let's click on it. As you might remember from last time, we have the tool settings on this side. And there are some few settings you can make for this really simple tool. You can choose to use the foreground color. You can also choose to use the background color. That's the one that's white right now. You can also use a pattern and choose the pattern here. And there are some extra settings which we don't really need to talk about at this point. But just leave it as it is. We will use the foreground color and we will fill the whole selection. So if you just click inside the image, the whole image will be filled with the color we just picked. Now let's just go ahead and add a box in a different color right on top of that. So let's find a new color. Let's go with a lighter shade of green. Tiny little bit on the blue side, go a bit up here and a tiny bit lighter. Let's take that one. Click OK. And now how do we create a box on this. Of course, you could take the paintbrush and just draw a box, but what we can do is we will take this tool. It's the rectangle select tool. Let's click on it. We will talk about the different settings of the selection tools at a different point. You can left click and drag to create a rectangle. Release. And we've actually not selected anything yet. You can still drag in these corners to change the selection. You can also drag in the bottom part to increase the size in this direction or at the top. As soon as you're happy with the selection, you left click once again inside of the box. And now we've made the selection. Now let's fill this shape with the new green color. We will go back to the bucket fill tool. And now, whenever we click, we will only fill the selection which is made. You can see that this shape is still selected. You can see that because there's this line around it. If you go to select, none, it will remove it, and now you can actually see what it looks like. So now we've just created a lighter green box. But now what? Maybe we are not really happy with the placement of that box. Maybe we would like to have this box closer to these two edges. So we would actually like to move it up and a bit to the left side. You might think, right, I will just take the move tool, let's click on it, and just move it. So what happens? The dark background and the light green box are part of the same layer. You can see this yellow shape. This is one layer, like one sheet of transparent paper, you could say. As you might remember, we can see all the layers right here. And you can see we only have one, the background. So both parts are part of the background, and whenever we move something, we move this whole layer. Luckily, we have the undo history. You might remember that the undo history is over here, unless you've moved it. If you can't see it, then you might have devices or images active, so just click on the undo pane and you should get this list. You can click on each of the steps to go back to this specific step, so you can actually see what I did. I moved the layer, now I move it back, I deselect, I fill the box, and so on until I'm back to this step where I filled the background. The smart thing to do is placing the new box, the light green box, on a separate layer, so we can move that one layer without moving the background. So let's go ahead and create a new layer. Right here we have the different layers. To create a new layer, we will click on the white sheet of paper with a plus sign, and you will get this window up. You can give the layer a name. Let's call it layer 1. The standard settings are usually fine here. The standard is it's transparent, which makes sense in almost all cases, and it's the same size as the image. So just go ahead and click OK. And now you can see we have two layers. We have the dark green background and we have the layer 1 we just made, and as you can see it's all transparent. That's this check pattern. Now let's do the same thing again and create the light green box. Make sure you have layer 1 active. You can see it has a darker color. So click on layer 1 if you haven't yet. Let's take the rectangle select tool again and create a box. It doesn't matter how big or where it is. Click inside of it to make the selection, and we will take the bucket fill tool again and fill the selection. Again, let's go to select, none, to deselect the box again, and with pretty much the same result. Just now, if we would like to move this light green box and go to the move tool and drag, we only move the light green box because you can see the yellow line. This is a separate layer, so like a separate sheet of transparent paper. So we can just place it wherever we want without moving the background. Let's create another layer. Go back to the layer dialog, click on the white sheet with the plus sign. Again, you will get that dialog. We will call it layer 2. OK. And we get another transparent layer. Make sure it's selected. And let's take yet another color. I will take a light blue. Here you can see colors you've recently used. I will just go with that light bluish color, but just pick any color you like. And again, I will take the rectangle select tool and I will place another shape right on top of both the light green box and the background. Again, at this point you can still drag in the corners at the bottom or top or on the sides to change the shape and size of the selection. And first, if you left click inside of the shape again, you will make the actual selection. Now we will fill this shape with the light blue color. So let's take the bucket fill tool, click inside of it, and we have this one. Let's remove the selection, go to select, none, and you can see we have these two shapes on a dark green background. The layers that are on top on the list, they actually are on top, and the lower you get, the lower they are on the picture. Like imagine just several pieces of paper that are stacked on top of each other. In this list you can just drag the layers around to change the order of them. So if I drag layer 2, that's the blue shape, down, and you will see a white line appearing between the light green box and the background. I can also place it all the way down, but I don't want that. I would like to have it on top of the background, but underneath the light green box, and release the leftmost button. And you can see the two shapes switched places. Now the light green box is on top of the light blue box. let's do that again. Layer 1, that's the one with the light green box. Let's drag that down underneath the light blue box and release. Now it's the blue box again that's on top, and let's drag it down under the background and release, and you can see the green box disappears, of course, because the green background covers the whole image, so the light green box is just not visible anymore. So let's just place the green box right here again, so the blue one is on top. I've mentioned that you can create new layers by clicking on the white sheet of paper with the plus sign. You can also use those orange arrows to move layers up and down instead of dragging. That's a matter of taste. You can duplicate layers by clicking on this icon with the two squares. So let's just try that. Let's duplicate the light green box. I have layer 1 active. Let's click on duplicate layer, and you can see I get a copy because they are on top of each other with the exact same position. You can't see that there are two now, but if you switch to the move tool and drag in one of them, you can see we have actually two of them now. Let's go down here. Like that. And let's just move this copy one up so it's in front of the blue shape. As I mentioned, you can also use the orange arrows here if you prefer that. So let's just try that. And you can see it moved one up and is in front of the blue box now. If you'd like to delete a layer, you select the layer and click on the red X icon right here. We also have a mask icon and an anchor icon, but we won't talk about these two at this point. For each layer, you have a opacity, and you can see it right here. This means you can make layers slightly see-through. So if we go to the top layer, that's that green box I copied and placed on top of the other two, and we reduce the opacity a bit, you can just click here to move it down, or you can use those two arrows, but I think it's easier to just move your mouse on top of it and click, and you can see now it's slightly see-through, so you can actually see the blue box shine through the green one. So it's a really good idea when working in GIMP, pretty much with anything you make and create or paint, to place different elements on different layers. You can easily create hundreds of layers if you would like that. You can also create folders right here, like it's a folder icon with a plus sign. You can name this folder, like I call it boxes, and you can just drag these layers with the boxes I have into the folder. So if you at one point have hundreds of layers, you can create some kind of a structure. Before we stop for today, there are two things I would like to show you. First, let's create another layer. Let's click the new layer icon, call it layer 3, click OK, And now let's take the tool right next to the one we've used before. It's the ellipse select tool. You can probably guess that it can be used to make a selection that is an ellipse. So just like the box select tool before, you can just left click and drag. And you can still drag in the corners or at the bottom or the top. And if you click in the center again, you make the actual selection. We can remove the selection with select none. If you have a look at the tool settings, there are some different settings. You can enter the position by hand if you would like that, if you need an exact position. But the one that's actually interesting for now is the fixed aspect ratio. If you check that one and make a new selection, you will always select the perfect circle. So the height and width are identical. Click to the center to make the selection. And again, you can fill that with a color you like. Let's just pick a new one. Let's go for like a gold yellow and fill it. Select none to deselect. The last tool I would like to have a look at is the next one. It's the free select tool. So we've made selections for boxes and circles. With the free select tool, you can just create any selection, any shape you like. Left click, release left click, and you can drag a line. Left click again, 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 again. Close it and make the selection by hitting enter on your keyboard. And we've selected this kind of strange shape. Let's deselect that. Select none. You can also use this tool by clicking, left clicking and holding down left click and just almost painting a line. Release, press enter to make the selection. So this is like a freely drawn selection and it can be really useful. Select none to deselect again. So that was it for this second part. I hope you learned something new and I hope stuff makes sense. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to my channel. It would really help me. If you have questions, visit me on Patreon or leave a comment. Thank you and goodbye.